All right. Okay. So before we get into the session, would you guys all be able to scan that QR code on the screen? We are going to do some trivia, some Africa trivia. Yeah. So we're going to see how much everyone in this room knows. I'm also going to put our panelists on the spot as well, see how much they know. All right. And we've been having a lot of technical difficulties, so I hope this all goes smoothly. If not, we will just get into our questions. Sound good? Perfect. So thank you all so much for coming to today's session. We have three incredible panelists here, and they're all going to be talking about their own personal ties to the continent of Africa. And they're also going to be talking and giving some insights on some of the opportunities, the challenges, etc. And throughout this session, what we're really hoping that you all take away is the vast array of cultures that are present in this continent and how each of you can get involved if you're interested in exploring a career there, or even just traveling and having some personal experiences. So before we get into it, let's do this survey, this trivia. All right, let me actually come and help you. Okay. Oh, right, thank you. I think we've got it. All right. So our first question is, which is the largest country in Africa? And there are 4 different options there.
Like human beings or like land mass?
Yeah.
This is land mass. Good question. Because there may be another similar question. It's the other one. Do you guys have any guesses that you're willing to share out loud?
Algeria.
Yeah, I think it's Algeria.
Okay, so has everybody gotten a chance to vote? Think we can move forward? And you got it, it's Algeria.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that one, but I am really bad with geography and just the map and everything. All right, so the next question is, which is the most populous country in Africa? I think we can. Nigeria, you guys got it right.
100%, well done.
100%. We had 17 people who answered that one, so it's a good guess. So which is the smallest country in Africa? This one might be a bit harder. Panelists, what do we think? I don't know. Just guess.
It looks like landmass.
My guess would be Djibouti.
Assume landmass.
My guess, Djibouti is super small.
I don't know nothing about
Togo's not that small.
Cabo Verde.
I think, yeah.
It could be Cabo Verde.
I don't know. Ooh.
Okay, so let's see what. Oh, I mean, we can let's.
Asia.
Oh, wow.
Oh, you got that one. Oh,
A big sorry, incorrect.
Sorry.
right. I can slide them. All right. So next question is, how many countries are in Africa?
It depends on the day.
Interesting. As of today. Let's see what the crowd is starting to think. So we've got 44 in the lead, 54 is a close second. Oh, you guys need more time. Okay, we can go a little slower. Okay, this one was 54, so now if anybody ever asks you, you'll always know. The next one, I promise, will go slower. All right, so what is the name?
This is also population?
Looks like.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What is the name of Africa's largest city?
I think it's people.
Must be Lagos. Can you take up the-
For sure is.
It's Cairo. I think it's Cairo.
Really?
I think it's Cairo.
Yes, Lagos. Hello?
Human beings?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I think we're. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
That's really cool. If it is, I don't know. I would have guessed Lagos because.
I mean, it's either one of the two.
What are you guys thinking?
I think it's Cairo.
That's going to be really interesting. I was going to say Lagos. Well, I did say Lagos.
Yeah, you know,
I think it's Cairo.
we'll see. Has the audience had enough time to guess? Yeah? Okay, I think we can move forward. So this is the most popular vote, Legos. Let's see what it actually ends up being.
Yeah, it's Legos.
All right,
Hello?
you guys got it. But the thing is, yeah, I am not sure what they were basing that on because I did just take this from a kids survey. So this is real. We were talking. It's giving. Are you smarter than a fifth grader vibes? All right. Next question. How many countries does the Nile River flow through?
I have no idea.
This one's a little tricky.
I know
Go
Egypt and Sudan.
Well, Egypt, Sudan,
Sudan.
South Sudan,
Yeah.
Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi. How many is that?
Oh, that's definitely at more than 5. So 8, maybe.
11.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that.
8 or 11.
Yeah.
8 or 11.
Is it close to Tanzania?
Let's see what the audience is thinking so far. Looks like we're kind of split between the two. Are we good to show the answer?
Yeah.
Alrighty. 11. Unfortunately, I don't have the actual countries listed for you.
I think I do, if you're interested. If we go from the top, it's Egypt, Sudan, South Sudan, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Tanzania. Does it reach Zambia? Zambia? I'm not sure.
Jesus.
I'm out of 2.
That is incredible. This was once again, this was on a kids quiz. Yeah, I was like, wow, smart kids. Yeah, what are they teaching? Okay, I think we can go to the next one. Which country has a coastline along the Atlantic Ocean?
Senegal.
Yeah, that's because that's the transatlantic slave trade. You think about it like that? Yeah.
I know
With
Nigeria
the corridor
has
of no
it, so it
return.
has to be somewhere in the west.
Give it a little bit more time. We're at 16 responses. What are you guys thinking?
I'm thinking of the famous corridor of no return in the transatlantic slave trade, and it says Atlantic, so I'm thinking that's in Freetown, Senegal. But yeah,
Okay, it looks like we've got most of our responses, so let's see what the audience thinks. Okay. I wonder if some people changed their answers when they.
no,
Yeah. Well, you did get it right,
I know,
Senegal.
that's funny.
warm.
Who chose Tanzania?
All right. So, third last question. Which African country borders both the Atlantic Ocean and the Indian Ocean?
Maybe South Africa?
Oh, that's interesting.
I think it's South Africa.
It can be
Place where they
Cameroon.
go,
It can be Kenya.
where the ocean, where the place where
They collide, yeah.
yeah, so
Mozambique?
clever.
Hearing some good discussion here.
Could be wrong.
Right. 23 responses. Anybody else want to get some in? Okay. I think we're good to see what the audience thinks. 25.
Ooh.
South Africa. Let's see the answer. South Africa. Awesome. Are you guys just getting this from like your knowledge or did you Google? Is anybody Googling? Okay. I'll believe you. I'll trust you. You guys are lucky I didn't make all these about Zambia. That's where I'm from. Okay. I had a lot of options, by the way. So the 9th question. Which one of these African cities is not a capital city?
Johannesburg? What's the capital of South Africa?
Johannesburg,
It's Cape Town and the other one. They have 2.
Joburg, and Cape Town. So I don't.
Is it 2 of them? No, I swear it's Johannesburg.
Harare is Zimbabwe.
Harare, Zimbabwe.
Lusaka is.
Algiers.
Zambia?
Algiers is
Algiers
correct.
is Algeria. That's
So let's say Johannesburg.
I feel like it's Johannesburg.
Yeah, like a trick question.
I feel like the capital is like Cape Town and Pretoria.
Pretoria is the capital. Well, it's a government capital, but then there's the
they have
city
2.
capital.
Oh, they have
two,
multiple
you're right.
capitals?
Yeah.
Oh, that's bullshit.
No, it's fine.
That's tricky. Oh my god, 3 capitals?
You know where you're going.
3 capitals?
Yeah.
Jesus.
2.
2.
All right. Is this all of our guesses? I've seen us get to 25. I think there's 2 more people. It's okay. We can see what the audience is thinking.
They're like, nope, we don't want to.
It's a close one. And it is Johannesburg. Lusaka is actually the capital of Zambia. So I did put one question in. Yes. All right. So last question. Which of these countries is a landlocked country?
Maybe Namibia?
I think so. But it's like
Where's Lesotho?
in the middle of South Africa. That's Swazi.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's one of the two. Either Namibia
It's
or...
not. Does it? Bots have a ocean?
Tanzania.
Oh, the biggest one.
No, Tanzania definitely.
No.
Tanzania definitely
I
not
should probably
landlocked. That's a beach.
That's a big one.
Oh, fuck.
I'm gonna go with
It's literally a beach country.
Let me.
I don't know. It's one of the two.
Oh, Lesotho.
Maybe it's Ghana.
It's definitely not Ghana.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No.
Tough one. Tough one.
What are you guys thinking?
It's either Lesotho or Namibia for sure, but I'm not sure which of the two.
Interesting. Okay. We're at 19 responses. Let's see what the crowd is thinking so far. Okay. And I think we can move forward and see the answer just for the sake of time. There we go. Amazing. Well, thank you guys for participating in our trivia. Now we can actually get into some of the questions. So as you can see, we've got our three panelists and our one moderator on the screen. With us today, we have Abwoma, Kingsley, and Wambui, who are all going to speak to their own experiences and their own ties to the African continent. So to get it started, I would love for you guys to each share a little bit of your personal journeys. So as part of this, I'd love to hear a little bit about your upbringing, what has brought you to today, and how your ties to the African continent have played a part in that journey. And we will start with Abwoma.
Okay. Hi, guys. My name is Abwoma. I'm from Nigeria. I was born and raised there. I grew up there all my life, and then I went to Calvin College, a small school in Michigan. Can you guys hear me? Do I need this? Okay. Okay. So I went to school in Michigan for undergrad, and then after that I moved to Honduras. I was a teacher for 2 years, and then I moved back home. Worked there since 2018, and then right now I'm a MBA candidate at USC. I know I'm not supposed to be here technically.
It's controversial.
Fight on.
We'll allow it today.
But yeah, so that's pretty much my story. What else do I need to say? Sorry.
That is totally fine.
Okay,
You
cool.
no, actually, no, that's totally fine.
All right.
We can go to Kingsley next.
All right, everyone. My name is Kingsley Ansong. I'm actually from Toronto, Canada. And basically, the reason why I'm here is for a favor for Fuad, who's not here, and a favor for Chongo. I was talking to him earlier this year for just as like a prospective student, and he mentioned this event. They said I should come. I agreed to it like 5 months ago. Those 5 months came fast. So flying out tomorrow. So I grew up in Toronto to immigrants of Ghana, one of the countries in the West. Went to do my bachelor's somewhere in Canada, London, Ontario. Did my master's in Canada as well. Did a second master's in Vienna, Austria. I lived there for 2 years. Moved back to Canada, to Toronto. Worked in a telecom company, marketing company. Then early last year, decided I wanted to leave the corporate world forever, and basically started like an investment fund. The goal is to kind of do like a business in Africa, particularly in Ghana. So luckily, people kind of bought into the idea. A lot of people are interested in doing business in Ghana, or Africa, but they're very unsure. There's a lot of, not rumors, but lots of like negativity out there about if you invest, where's your money going to go? So basically, I created this investment vehicle that's going to serve as like a beacon for people to invest in and feel like their money is going to where it should be going. Earlier this year, we started a pineapple farm. We have like 30 acres planted, so about 1.2 million pineapples planted. We have another 600,000 under like a franchisee model where we basically consolidated all the smaller farmers underneath our brand. We plan to ship it to Middle East, Europe, and eventually the US. Yeah, I think that's basically it.
Very, very cool.
Oh, sorry.
So my name is Wambui Waiganjo. I'm UCLA Anderson alum. I was born and raised in Nairobi, Kenya. I went through the Catholic school system, so I'm Loreto Primary School, Secondary School, and the Holy Ghost Fathers for something we call like post-secondary school. Then I did my bachelor's in medicine and surgery at University of Nairobi, and then I decided. I worked in the city, and then I worked a little bit in the rural areas, a little tiny mission hospital, went back to the city to the obstetrics unit of the biggest obstetric hospital in Africa, delivered a lot of moms and took care of a lot of newborns, but then decided that I want to spend time on PowerPoint slides, and so I joined, I joined McKinsey, and worked with McKinsey, worked as a management consultant, and felt like, once again, I want to go back to school. So I came to Los Angeles and I came to UCLA. And in UCLA, I decided that, I like drug development and discovery. And so I went into pharma, spent some time in biotech as well. And now I am in medtech. I have a 16-year-old son who I have carried along with me throughout that whole adventure you just heard of. And my experience in African countries through McKinsey, I didn't live in them, but I did spend a lot of time working on different projects in 7 to 8 African countries. So that's my perspective, yeah.
All right. Thank you all for sharing your stories. And I think the one thing that we can see from hearing from each of your backgrounds is that each of you have had considerable amounts of experience working or living in the continent of Africa, whether that's where you started or whether that's where you're transitioning to. So it's really exciting to hear about that. So in terms of our first question, it kind of relates to what I just said. So each of you have the unique experience of having lived or had experiences here in North America, as well as in the continent of Africa, wherever you're from, as well as other places in the world too. So my question for you is, what was the experience like moving from one culture to a very different culture? And what were some of the most surprising or unexpected challenges, but also triumphs that you faced when you moved?
From Nairobi to Los Angeles, you can imagine a whole, like a big adjustment. There's a new word that people use commonly called codependence. So that's just how we live in Nairobi. So we weren't codependent. Just families everywhere and all over your space. Friends are everywhere. Your social calendar is popping. So like that is the big codependent adjustment. So coming to LA, learning to be completely self-sufficient, that took quite a big lift for me.
Sure. So I did the reverse. Basically, I worked mostly in Toronto. This past year, I've been to Ghana 5 times. It's like a 17-hour journey each way. The biggest challenge, I'd say, is that I guess I grew up in a Ghanaian household, so it's not like things were entirely like new. But I think just being there on a day-to-day basis, seeing like, it's a very humbling experience. I think actually the biggest challenge is that I feel like I'm actually less empathetic, as crazy as that sounds, in terms of when I'm in North America. When I hear actual problems or actual concerns, I feel like there versus here, I kind of like don't take it seriously as much here. One of our farmers, I was told on Monday that he was sick and that he'd be back soon. I was like, cool. On Wednesday, I asked where he was, and it's like, oh, he had malaria, he'll be back tomorrow. And I was like, he had malaria and he'll be back tomorrow? And he's like, yeah, and he was back tomorrow. Seriously, so I think the humbleness you get from being there and seeing like how people still kind of move forward and strive, it's, yeah.
So I moved for undergrad to Michigan in the middle of nowhere, which was amazing. Very cold, very different, honestly. I think for me, the biggest adjustment or difference was honestly the realization that I was Black, which is really funny, but I had never thought of myself as Black. Or maybe I had, but I just would never have identified myself as a Black person. Like I would never have said those words. first or second or third. Like my tribe was more important, my nationality was more important. Even the concept of being African, like I knew I was, but I would never have been like, hey, I'm African. And then you move to the States and everyone's like, oh, you're African. I'm like, oh, I guess, yeah. And even just like being Black, just like the weight of blackness.
Not the whole thing. Like I'm not African.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, but I'm Nigerian specifically. Yeah, just like the weight of race and blackness was like unexpected. I just commend everybody who's been living here as Black from the day they were born. I was exhausted after 4 years. That's kind of why I was like, I'm going home. I'm not doing this anymore. So yeah, that was a challenge for me.
No worries. Yeah, thank you all for sharing your unique experiences. I think for me personally, I actually have a lot of family members who also started in Zambia and ended up coming and either staying with my family or staying with family friends when I was growing up in Ottawa. And I remember one of my specific friends was 18 when she moved, and I think I was 15. And I'm like, yeah, she just moved here. That's cool. But now that I'm a little bit older, I'm like, wow, she was so young to experience a completely different culture, and she just crushed it. It's actually really incredible when you think about all the different cultures or the different things that you're kind of dealing with and then expected to just move on with the rest of society. And it works in both ways, right? So really have to commend you all for being able to experience two cultures and doing such a great job with it. So my next question for the three of you is, what do you feel that the biggest misconception is when it comes to Africa?
Okay, I can go first. My one, I don't know if it's a misconception, I have two, but the one I think of is how little people know about African countries. Sometimes it just really throws me off how base level, like zero, or is that close to Nigeria? Like just zero knowledge. So that always startles me. I think also because our education system told us so much about other people. We are a very external facing education system in Kenya. So it's post-colonial, different conversation, but that's how we kind of did it. So coming here and people just don't know, it was quite shocking. Then sometimes I'm like, take it badly. Then I'm like, don't take it badly. Be graceful, be arrogant. So that's constantly happening. The second one for me, which is mostly amusing because I think it comes from everywhere, the idea that you would want to go back home, like back to Kenya, shocks people. So if I say, yes, I'm looking for, I might look for interviewing in Nairobi. It's like, oh, why would you do that? It's why wouldn't I? There's a lot of work that needs to be done at home, so it's always surprising. Why does it surprise you that someone would want to go home and do it? So that misconception that we've run away forever and will never want to go back, always, it's tiring, but it also throws me off quite a bit.
Yeah, you mostly stole most of my challenges because I think it's the truth.
You're welcome.
I think in general, just the magnitude of the ignorance as a whole. Like you mentioned, a lot of people don't even know much about Africa, how many countries are in Africa, how big Africa is. I think people kind of look at Africa as like a one place, one thing, when like, I've never been to Kenya. It's going to be completely different than...
I've been to Ghana.
Oh, fair enough. So it's like a totally different world in so many different ways, so many different cultures, religions, and so on. I think that I do think now in general, people are more open. Africa as a whole is being called the last frontier in terms of global development and so on. There's so much opportunity, so much resources, so a lot of companies are coming. China is all over Africa, for better, for worse. And a lot of construction is going on, but I think ignorance as a whole. But I think that when people go, like I know last year UCLA had a Ghana trip, I think this year or last year.
Oh, wow.
I was shocked to hear that. I was like, wow. But I think that when people actually go, they're surprised in a good way. And I've never heard anyone like go to Ghana in particular, that's all I know, and say they had a bad time. So I think people just taking the first step, going to somewhere that's not Europe, and not Australia, and not Thailand. I think that people always get a surprising experience.
Yeah, retweet to everything that was said. But also I think it's shocking how little people realize, like, just how diverse Africa is. Like, even specific countries, like Nigeria has, depending on who you talk to, 300 to 500 languages and tribes, and people are always like, huh? It's super diverse. And those tribes, honestly, like, they're so different. They're really unique. They have different languages, different cultures. Even I just learned recently, like, we're genetically different. Like, the north of Africa, of Nigeria, there's a specific tribe called the Hausa, and they're like, they're like different genetically. Like, my tribe, the Igbos, my dad is Igbo, my mom is Benin, but we descended from like the Bantu people. So I'm more genetically similar to some people in southern Africa than I am to people within Nigeria. So it's just like crazy. Africa is so diverse in so many different ways. And for people to just be like, oh, Africa is just like mind blowing to me.
Yeah, no, I definitely second everything that I've heard from each of you. I specifically want to comment on wanting to go back. My entire childhood, my mom every single day was like, one day I'll be home. Like, one day I'm going back. And I'm like, why are you so obsessed with going back? And she's like, you just don't get it. Yeah, so I definitely get that. And I feel like all of my family members who have come from there are the same. So definitely hear you there. So my next question for you is what your biggest frustration is about Africa. And this can even be specific to the countries that you are from or other countries that you're aware of.
That is the existential question of our times. Like, there's lots of things. There's post-colonial hangover, there's crisis, there's disease, there's poverty, there's conflict. There's a lot. But I want to speak to just one that frustrates me. And it's mostly, I think it's internal looking. So I'm kind of looking at the panel. How little Africans know about other Africans. So that we do look outside and say, oh my God, these guys don't know Ethiopia is not in Johannesburg. But also internally, during my times doing my projects with McKinsey, I would like really be shocked how little Ethiopians know about Kenyans, like how little, how pervasive the Nigerian stereotypes were in South Africa, how French-speaking Africa is like, where is English-speaking Africa? So internally, how little we know about each other would always throw me off. And then yet, we have so much like unprecedented love for each other. So a big example is we're literally the only continent in the world where during the World Cup, we all start with our individual countries, and then as people get knocked out of the race, we rally behind the ones that are left until it's the last man standing. So that's, I think I'll age myself a little bit. We all remember where we were during the 2010 World Cup, and this was held in South Africa. It was the year of the Vuvuzela. When I'm talking about World Cup, I'm talking about soccer in case you're not tracking. So the Vuvuzela was this like really big that we would blow. And it was 2010 and we were, it was in South Africa. Everyone has their different t-shirts. You get knocked out, you borrow your Nigerian t-shirt. You get knocked out, you borrow, you just keep going. And the quarterfinals, Ghana versus Uruguay, we only had Ghana left. And every single person remembers exactly where they were when he missed the penalty kick. It was the most traumatic penalty kick felt on the continent, and literally the stadium went dead because the Vuvuzelas, guess who's blowing them? It wasn't the Uruguays. So the stadium went dead, and the commentator said, and there we have silenced the Vuvuzelas in Africa. It was a fact. I remember where I was and on a campus, and it was pin drop. We were mortified. So if we can have so much love for each other, how does that coexist with how little we know each other and are bothered with each other? So if we spent a little more time internally looking at our commonalities, our histories, like where we're going, what we're up to, I really wonder how things would look like. I really wonder whether every single multinational would only start in South Africa. Like those kind of conversations as to a friend with a startup who is trying to expand in the region, like how would we advise each other? What would it actually look like, benchmarking, tech transfer? Like what do these things look like when we have internal knowledge about each other? So that's my frustration, and it's very internal facing.
Two frustrations that are kind of tied together. There's I guess everyone's heard of like Caribbean time, where things happen not when they're supposed to be happen, like way later. That pisses me off because I feel like it kind of perpetuates stereotypes and it actually impacts productivity in so many ways. So like one thing I've made clear to everyone that works with us in any capacity is that like we're doing things on time. If you can't do it on time, you're not working with us. Like we're really trying to be like the most innovative, like productive farm in Ghana. And to do that, we need to say that if you're gonna be there at 5 o'clock, be there at 5 o'clock.
How's that going?
Better than expected. So our means of communication is WhatsApp. So 90% of things I talk to people on my team, there's like 25 of us, farm managers, finances, lawyer, blah, blah. Like 2 weeks ago, I got like the wellness notification from my phone saying I spent 36 hours on WhatsApp in a week. That's 6 hours of screen time a day on one app. Whether on the phone, texting, like there's been jokes about how like they think that I'm typing by the voice to text because of how fast I'm typing, but I'm actually just typing. And I feel like because I started from the beginning, they understand the expectations, and now I can like let go, but they know I'm watching. So that, and also like the short-sightedness in terms of like thinking about next week, next month, and like that's it. I think it's a very short-sighted focus so often. We've talked about introducing like a stock option with our company, you know, giving out stocks to actually all the laborers, all the farmers, everything. I think something that's never been done there before. And some people are like, what's the value of this? You know, why? Other people are like, this is incredible, but I think it just highlights the whole like short-term, short-sighted mentality that is pervasive. Lots of reasons for that, but those are two things that piss me off, but WhatsApp is making it better day by day.
For me, I'll talk about Nigeria because Nigeria has enough frustration for the world. And I think the biggest thing I would say is just our leadership. I think we have created a political system where the worst of us really are ruling the best of us. And they are just on every side ruining our lives, blocking innovation. Nigerians are super resilient, super hardworking, super talented. Once we leave the country, we just do so well. Like we're the most educated, we're best in sports and music. And there's, even within Nigeria, there's still so much like coming from that country that is like kind of crazy given, you know, the environment that we're in. But I think our leadership, I just want them all gone, in summary.
I'll agree with her. Nigerians set a really a bar that the rest of us really struggle to reach, like with very high bar everywhere they go. True.
I was literally just talking to my aunt about this the other day with
problem.
respect
It's
to
a
music.
problem.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
actually a problem. She's like, we need to get Zambians up there too. I'm like, yeah, one day maybe. I don't know. We got a ways to go. But so my next question for you is how your experience growing up in, or in Kingsley's case, having some proximity to your cultures has shaped how you think about business opportunities and your careers.
So I'll talk about leadership styles. So my leadership style is very bottom up to a limit, right? So it starts very collaborative and getting buy-in, and then to a limit, here's the decision, and this is the direction we're going. So I believe that does come from growing up in Kenya, where buy-in is so important, even about whether we should paint the fence of the estate, like where you live, or whether anything in the family, whether it's chicken or everything has to be, or goat, everything has to come together. But at the end of the day, someone says it's chicken, deal. So that kind of coming together and moving forward, that is it's my leadership style as well. And I also experienced it with working in governments and NGOs in different countries. There's a style that everybody must be involved, everybody must touch this project, everyone must know it's happening. And then the minister says, so it's happening. And then we toe the line, and you can't say I wasn't there. So that's definitely one direction that has impacted me. When I think of business opportunities, yes, I'm always kind of wondering when and whether things will reach Kenya or other African countries. I also get very inspired by business innovations, companies that have been very successful. Here's a trivia question: how many billion-dollar revenue companies do you think there are in Africa? Just shout. Someone else? Shout.
I have no idea.
Shout. Shout.
300.
So
I literally have no idea. It was one. I don't know why.
there are 438. Yes, so that each of those companies has innovated in ways that are spectacular. Whether it's the last mile, like Unilever has wheelbarrows. They start from the factory with the big trucks, gets to a smaller car, a bike, a wheelbarrow. So like they've innovated what can I call it? The distribution channels, like there's no tomorrow. Huawei, the mobile phone that has hold 2 SIM cards because Africans all like to have choice. So we can't be stuck in one network. We have to have 2 networks. Their phones, literally, you can put your 2 SIM cards. Like different ways that they've innovated is always very fascinating for me. So when I hear like Netflix has moved to town, so I'm very curious as to let's see how they innovate their business models. So because what works everywhere else will not work in an African country.
I think in general, because of the fact that my family, mom, dad, they lived in London, they lived in New York City, then finally Toronto. Because of that, and the fact that I went to Ghana, let's say every 5 years growing up, I think the world has always been smaller to me in some ways, in the sense that like, if I want to go all the way over there, like I can kind of go everywhere. So, and that kind of drove my decision to go to school in Europe. It wasn't that big of a deal. My parents weren't crying or concerned. It's like, you'll figure it out, you know. So I think in general, having that family there has made the world smaller. It's not so crazy to go live somewhere else, far away from family. It's not so crazy to go do business there, even though everyone advised me not to, unfortunately. But I think just makes me feel like the world's your oyster in the way that like, what's the worst that could happen? So I'd say that's one big thing.
I think a friend once said that he feels like for every Nigerian, the choice isn't necessarily to stay or leave, but it's to save or leave. And like we were talking about how big a burden that is on, I feel like Americans, for you, like, your countries, there's issues, whatever, but you don't necessarily think of, I have to be here to save America or like leave. You just kind of assume you're probably going to stay unless there's some reason, maybe you get a job or whatever, and then maybe you leave. But for Nigerians, you're consistently thinking, do I stay? Do I stay? Do I stay? And if I stay, that means I have to be like involved in helping this get better. So I feel like that is kind of like my mindset. And I feel like early on I chose save. And I mean, honestly, there's no good decision to make. Like even the people who leave aren't necessarily happy to leave. Like you feel like you're being forced to, in a sense, but staying is also really overwhelming because of the state of the country. So I don't know. I feel like for me, I'm always thinking about like, what opportunities are back home? What business can I do back home? How can I do something meaningful? I'm always thinking of like a bigger picture. And I don't know how to like turn that off. Like I can't just like work and exist. I consistently have to be thinking like, how is what I'm doing making people's lives better? Like, should I be doing something else? Should I be starting an NGO? You're just consistently having those thoughts, I feel like.
So that actually segues us really well into my next question, which is what opportunities are you most excited for? And do you have any plans to actually go back home and explore some of those opportunities?
I believe the biggest opportunity is in storytelling. So I'm like putting all my bets on film, on music, on literature, on theater, because I believe that's first, it's a low-hanging fruit because we do it really well. And then there's also, it's high impact on very many levels. The reason everybody knows about America is hip hop, right? And Hollywood. So those are great exports of American culture. So that's a really big and important example as to how we could, that's exciting, and how we can multiply that. So, yeah, storytelling.
Sure. So in terms of opportunities, basically, I think the whole point of like the investment fund I started was basically show people that, hey, like this pineapple farm is to serve as like a proof of concept. Like I'm no farmer, never farmed my entire life, but it's going really well because I know that I don't know, and make sure to hire people around me who do know. Like we have pineapple consultants. People find us really funny that we have like a team of pineapple consultants who are experts in pineapple cultivation, export, all the little details. It's fucking complicated, like way more than most people think. There's like 20 different types of pineapples, all these little considerations, the sugar levels, this, that, how you water it, how much you water it, like lots of considerations. So people are surprised how well it's going. And like this year we had like $250,000 like committed to this investment fund. Next year we have $500,000. And basically people are seeing that like we've been able to go into a field we have no experience in and do really well. And that, we're down the line, we're looking to do different things like go into real estate, go into, like we're thinking of creating like a massive choir hall in the capital city, all these different ideas that are gonna exist within the portfolio. So I think showing people, especially the West, that your money will go to the right thing, you have an amazing return, and this is proof, and that's why it's so important to be like excellent from like beginning to end, and why like Ghana time, Caribbean time, just cannot be a thing.
He's really mad about Ghana time. For me, like kind of echoing what Wambui said, like, I worked in entertainment, I worked in film, I worked in music, and honestly, yeah, I think storytelling is the biggest opportunity. And I mean, specifically Nigerian culture is just so cool. Like, honestly, it's unbeatable. We're the coolest. I don't know what to tell you. Our stories are so fun. Our music is amazing. And I feel like
you see how they behave. We're not
yeah. But no, I think that there's just so much opportunity for like growing the entertainment industry. And I feel like even just like how the effect that could have on the economy as well. I feel like, yeah, we could hire so many people, give so many people opportunities and access. And that's what I'm really focused on. So I'm really interested in seeing how like with music and with film, we can create like really cool things, export it to the world, tell our stories authentically, and also create impact back home. So yeah, like that's kind of why I came here. I wanted to like get into like a company like Netflix or Spotify. So if anybody knows any contacts, let me know. But yeah, because I just think that that's the next thing for us. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think those were all really insightful answers. And I think we actually are starting to see a really big focus on African culture, even here in the US. You're seeing a lot of musical artists who are starting to try and explore their roots. I mean, Beyonce released that whole film experience. So I think it's something where we're getting a lot of attention, and it's like, how can we make sure that back home we're seeing that same impact, and we're able to actually amplify those voices as well, not just American artists. So my next question for each of you is around the MBA and how it's taken a part in your MBA, in your career journey. So I know two of you, well, one of you has done your MBA, one of you is in progress of doing your MBA, and one of you is thinking of exploring your MBA, potentially here. So would love to hear how that takes part in your career journey and how you see it taking you to where you are looking to be.
So for me, it's a UCLA thing. So the thing, the thing is, when I was selecting my MBA, it had to be, and this is for you as well, Kingsley, it had to be something I could go back home with. It sounds terrible, but I could not go back home with a brand that nobody knows. It would not open the correct opportunities for me. It's terrible. It sounds terrible to say that, but it's true. It has to be something that my aunt can say, yeah, my niece is in UCLA. It's easy. She knows it. People know. And so the doors open easier, I believe. And there's a little bit of more value given. So my MBA story is actually a UCLA Anderson story, so I'm very grateful for the opportunity. The network is amazing. I had other Africans in my class, so one other. So that was good as well. So, and then there's just, invitation and curiosity, and we had the whole idea to a trip to Kenya. A bunch of people went to South Africa and came back with lots of inspired and stories and things they wanted to do. So UCLA MBA is the best MBA in the world.
Funny. Let's see. So to be totally honest, I feel like I'm going to achieve what I want to achieve with or without an MBA. That's just how I feel, honestly. But I feel like with the MBA, is this company going to just be a $10 million company, 20 million, 50 million, 100 million? Like, how big can this get? And I think that's kind of like what I play with when it comes to MBA or not MBA and so on. UCLA is particularly important is because of the fact that when we want to export pineapples to the US, California, LA is going to be like a primary market. People here you guys love your fruits, exotic fruits. So, and Ghana in particular has a pineapple that's green on the outside. It's not as yellow as the ones you guys are typically familiar with. It has like a whiter flesh inside. It tastes really fucking amazing, but people are not used to like seeing like orange, like a yellowish, or sorry, a whitish pineapple. So UCLA being in LA makes it an attractive choice. So that's kind of what I'm considering whether 2 or not 2. And round 2 is due in January 4th. So gotta decide quick.
Yeah, I feel like that was a lot of UCLA propaganda. So. But no, I mean, regardless, I think an MBA for me has been interesting. I did not come from a business background. I was pre-med as a typical Nigerian. I was going to go to medical school. So I didn't really know much about pretty much anything. And I think I was like at a stage of my career where I was like, oh, even if my boss quit her job, like, I don't think I could take it. Like, I mean, even if for some reason they put me there, I would not be good at it because I just don't have a lot of the knowledge that I need. And that was when I started thinking about going to school and also building my networks as well. And MBA is like really, really, I think that's probably what it does the best, is help you build your networks and just have really cool opportunities like this, meet new people. And yeah, I also wanted to be in like tech/entertainment. So LA was kind of like the obvious choice. Actually applied to UCLA. Y'all accepted me, but you didn't give me money. So, but yeah, anyway, UCLA is a really good school. I definitely did consider it. So yeah, where's admissions? But yeah, no, honestly, whatever program you end up going, if you are considering an MBA, I think definitely do it. I really feel like the world is at my fingertips right now. Like, I just have so many opportunities. I feel like I can do anything I want. And there's not many like periods in your life like this. So I feel really grateful to be able to have this opportunity.
Amazing. And I have one final question before we open it up to the audience. What would you recommend for anybody who's interested in learning more about or exploring a career in Africa?
So I just got this really cool book. It's written by 2 English-born, they're born in the UK, different African countries. Their parents are from different African countries, and they've written this amazing book called "It's Not a Country." Please get that book. It covers everything. So they're very curious, the 2 of them. So it spans around different countries in Africa, different stories. So from how did Nigerians contribute to World War II, to who was actually a participant in the apartheid struggle, to how many Nobel Peace Prize winners are there, where are they from, how did an African man end up being the richest black man in the world. So just covered different topics, and then they're light and they're funny, these 2 chicks. So like the book comes out light and funny and engaging. I highly recommend that book. It's called "It's Not a Country." Doing Business in Africa, which is a McKinsey report by Achaleke. It's a good starting point to know what to say in the room when you're talking about doing businesses and companies with a regional expansion. So the MBA book, so you read it with that side of your brain. And to visit Nairobi. I highly recommend you visit Nairobi. It's popping, like it's vibrant. It also has a national park right in the middle of the city. It has fun people. Anything can happen at any time, which is fun. It's got a very big expat community, so you'll also feel welcome and at home. There's opportunity for business. There's also opportunity for charity, and there's also opportunity for fun. So anything you want to do, I 10 out of 10 recommend Nairobi as your visiting destination. You know, party after party after party after party. Yeah, that's from Nairobi.
I think simply put, just actually going to Africa in some capacity. I think you can do all the research you want, PowerPoints, this, that. But I think just go somewhere there. And I think I would recommend not going through like an NGO, actually, because I feel like that kind of frames it differently. It frames it from like coming to save Africa. And I think that kind of distorts everything. I think just go on UCLA trip to Ghana. That was last year, right? Just go there, experience it, see how it feels like, and start there. I think saying I want to do business in Africa now is a bit of a jump. So
he just
I think,
doesn't want competition. He's going to do business in Africa.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to add to what they say. I would say Africa is just so complex. Like each country, each city, each region, it's really complicated. So I don't feel like you can necessarily get a grasp on it if you don't go. I would actually recommend Nairobi. I feel like that's like Africa light. Like it's like a good entry point. You can't go to Nigeria by yourself. Don't do that. Go with someone you know. It's a little more chaotic over there. But even Ghana in December, there's like a whole homecoming thing. A lot of African Americans are going back. So that's a vibe. Tanzania is like cute and beachy. So like, yeah, there's definitely things that are like more entry level Africa. And then you can start going to Nigeria. But yeah. Just go. It's fun.
I think Kingsley's like, sorry, just one more thing. Kingsley's put something in my mind. As much as there's lots of opportunities, it would be misguided and I think terrible of us to pretend that there's not a lot of problems, and a lot of problems need a lot of different solutions. Of the companies I talked about, the 438 companies that have $1 billion plus revenue per year, one of the things that unites them all and has made them successful is they're purpose-driven and they do good. So there is a lot of poor people, there is a lot of sick people, there is people coming out of conflict, there is an important role that's played by non-governmental organizations. There's a role for charity, there's a role for business, there's a role for politics. So all these things have to coexist because they each play an important part. So if you feel like your heart is more on doing charity work, please don't feel like, oh, I shouldn't because I'm pushing a stereotype. No, your work is needed. And if you're really good at it, you can have a big impact. If you have a tech startup and you think it's really cool and you can change things, please, by all means, take your big brains with big ideas and do big things. If you're like Kingsley and is business-minded and you can rally people around a business and build it up like he's done, please go and do that. There's a role for everybody and you can have a really big impact.
All right, thank you all for answering all of these questions. Now I want to open it up to the audience to see if there's anything that you'd like to ask any of our panelists.
Thank you all for spending this evening with us and sharing your experience. I'm an immigrant myself in the US, so I related to a lot of things that you said. I would love to hear how you build community when you moved here, because like you said, you came from a very touchy-feeling like culture and then get here and you can feel lonely. Like what were some of the things that help you build community here?
Want to take it?
Yeah, you can go. Oh. I feel like it was a little different for me because can you guys hear me?
Is it on?
Is it on? No, it's not. Okay. Hello? Okay. So I went to school, and honestly, I made a lot of friends with other immigrants who had like similar backgrounds. That's honestly what I did. Like even here, not that I don't have American friends, I do, but I think it was easier, at least at first, to definitely connect with the Asians, the Latin Americans, because they just have like similar cultures, honestly. And then I built my way up to having more American friends. That's honestly what I would say.
So I'll give you really tactical things to do, which is what I did. Number one is sit outside your house. Like literally take your chair and go sit outside the house. Whether you have a book, a glass of wine, a cup of tea, you will attract the people who like the books, the wine, the tea, the dog. So sit outside your house. That's how I made my first friend. I sat outside the house and she's a neighbor, and till today she's my friend. Aww. The second one is join UCLA. So the EMBA class became my network and my friends. In fact, Tori was just here and she stayed on to watch, so that they really expanded my thinking and also expanded my community. The third one is join Bumble. So for both reasons. So the Bumble dating and the Bumble BFF. So I have friends from Bumble BFF, and I could say that they're my community, and if I needed something, they would rally around me. And who knew? But we must use this, the traditional way, sit outside, the business way, join business school, and the more techie way, join Bumble. Yeah.
Love that. Thank you.
Yeah, even though I grew up in North America, I think seeing my parents and how they managed to build community, I think the initial reaction is to kind of stay amongst your own for obvious reasons, but I think it's really, really important that you also step out and try really hard to step out of that comfort zone, inch by inch, and so on, because I think that you can stay within your own to the point where you never explore anything outside, and kind of keeps you in. So I think obviously it's hard, it's very hard, but I think slow but steady, like building people, friends, networks of people outside of your own circle, race, and so on. Because I think sometimes, you start to see like the Asians over there, the Africans over there, the Japanese over here, and I think it's almost like a second wave segregation ends up being, honestly. But I think that if you just force the mingling, I think that's the best outcome for everyone.
We can hear you, I think.
Mm-hmm.
No, actually.
Test, 1, 2.
Do okay.
I was wondering, so you all kind of talked about like the misconceptions that you've heard like about your home countries and about Africa in general. I'm from Washington, D.C., so kind of like the running theory in the U.S. is that that's just like where all the politicians live and like that's it. So whenever I'm describing to someone, I'm like, yeah, like they exist, but also like there's this great food scene and there's like all this history. I'd love to hear like for each of you, for like your home city, Kingsley, maybe you could talk about like where your family's from, like what's kind of like the sell that you give to be like, oh no, like you don't actually know Nairobi, like it's actually like.
That's a really nice question. And something happened in Nairobi and in Kenya. Everybody landed there for one reason or the other. The British came. They brought indentured Indians to build the railway. The Arabs came to trade. Everybody kind of found their way into Nairobi. So we have quite a diverse food scene. So that's the part of, everyone knows party after party after. But then the other part of the story is I've never been to a place in the world and found a food that doesn't exist at home. So we have, Kenyans will tell you chapati is our traditional food, and we all know who made chapati and where that came from, but they don't want to have that argument. We have a lot of shakshuka, and there's a lot of vegan food. There's everybody kind of landed there. So a secret that now you all have about Nairobi is there's a very diverse food scene.
In terms of Ghana, I think that so Ghana is a low-key, very, very Christian country. Regardless of what you think about religion and so on, this informs like day-to-day behavior. I'm not sure if people watch Handmaid's Tale. You know, they talk with God's grace and things like that. Like I'll ask like one of the guys, hey, how's today? He's like, with God's grace, it's going well. And it was kind of weird at first. It's still kind of weird when they do that, but it kind of makes people like extra friendly. Like they won't do bad things, not just because it's bad, because of God. Seriously. And because of this, people are extra nice, extra friendly to the point where it's like, they rather like give you the shirt off their back and suffer. And I think it's actually like a bit of a negative to the point where it's like, you end up being exploited because you're just so giving, turning the other cheek and so on. So Ghana in general is a very...
It's okay.
Yeah, no.
Oh. That's okay. We can just keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, so in general, it's an extremely friendly place, like one of the friendliest places in Africa, I'd humbly say. People are super friendly because they're friendly and because God's watching. So you can go there by yourself without any assistance and people will be like super friendly. Like when I go there, it's still like almost a bit too friendly, like just, so.
That's funny.
Myself, or I come from Lagos, which is like the most populous city in Africa. Like, it's pure chaos. I don't know if you like that, then you'll love it. So it's also just, we love to party. There is no party like a Lagos party. I'm sure. Honestly, there's just none. Like the music, the food, like the way we do weddings, like I'm going back home this Christmas and like I'm going for a wedding. Like you have to have a wedding when you go home. If not, like why did you go home? Like, because the weddings, they're like better than clubs. They rent out massive halls, spend an obscene amount of money. Everyone's in their best clothes. The food is free. The drinks are flowing. The DJ's popping. It's such a good time. But that's how Lagos is 24/7. And then December, it's on steroids. There's like 5 events every day. There's concerts, there's food festivals, music festivals, weddings, because everyone comes home. So everyone's like trying to cram in their weddings so like all the family can come. So you can literally be like from this event hall, you're at the one wedding and then you're calling for the other wedding. It's like, oh, how's that wedding? And they're like, oh, it's fire. Like, and then everybody hops in the car and you don't know who's getting married, but that's fine. You just show up and you're partying till 3 a.m. It's honestly just the best time. So if you're looking for just pure vibes, come to Lagos in December. You will not be disappointed.
So much for your time. I grew up in Cameroon, so a lot of what you said resonated with me. I have 2 questions. One is kind of directed more towards Kingsley. Why pineapples? Like, what was the decision to pursue that opportunity? That you had? And then one thing that I didn't really hear about is, I know in Cameroon this is a big thing, systemic corruption. How have you navigated that in your business? And then for the panelists, trying to do business in Africa, you know, that's a big hurdle.
Why pineapples? So I actually had an uncle who, during retirement, he started a pineapple farm on a small scale. So I think that planted the seed like 6 years ago. It's a really economical, friendly fruit. It takes as little as 12 months to as long as 3 years to grow. So a lot of countries don't want to attempt it because if things go wrong, you find out 12 months later and you're screwed. That's why we have the pineapple consultants to help us with that. So it makes it kind of like the value prop is pretty good. Pineapples in general are everywhere. Like, before I got into pineapples, I didn't realize that it's everywhere. Food, pictures, clothing, like it's honestly everywhere. So I think that's one big reason for why pineapples. Ghana in particular, the soil is incredible. So lots of different products and stuff are there. I think once this pineapple farm is like on its own legs, that will expand to other fruits and so on. But pineapples just looks cool, exotic. It makes sense from the economic perspective. In terms of corruption, so this is a good question. I think that Ghana in particular has cracked down a lot in the last 10 years because of corruption. I think now the corruption is more like you can't buy your way in, but you can buy your way to the front of the line. So it's better, but it's not as egregious as it used to be. I haven't faced that much.
A lie.
I'm trying to think. Honestly, I haven't seen it. Honestly, I haven't seen it yet. I think maybe I've gone ahead of the line. I think that because people see like what we're doing in the community, like they'll give us what we want, like let us skate by certain things because they see the net impact versus not have us go through bureaucracy and so on. I think that's what we see in terms of corruption, but not like anything obscene, like that guy's my enemy, kidnap him, like nothing like that.
Nigeria has not cracked down on corruption, so it's thriving. And I don't know a good answer for you. I think that's partially why you go. A lot of it is just like figuring it out. I don't know if you can do like business in Africa, like on a large scale, without getting your hands a little, maybe not dirty, but like, you know, a little stained. I actually don't know, honestly. It's kind of ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And I don't know a good answer. You just kind of have to figure it out, I think. Yeah.
So from my experience, I do know people who have companies and have run companies and have a zero corruption policy internally. It's their value system and they won't do it. Things take longer, they wait for it to happen. Things are harder, they just wait and trudge on. Have they been successful? Yes. Would they have been successful faster? Who knows? But you can actually do it. So that's one answer. You just play the long game and be true to your values. You could do the other way. So the common, people like to say stereotype, but I did sit with, it was part of the report, the China-Africa report that McKinsey did, and we did sit with officials and people who've been very successful Chinese people, and they said, the officials would tell us, we have a line on our P&L, like that's it, period. We just put it into our system that this is gonna happen. And have they been successful? Yes. So you could do it that way, which is just you understand and put it in your P&L and now keep pushing your revenues to make it, the bottom line make sense. Or you could trudge along and do it the correct and proper way. Up to you.
I certainly resonate with the power of storytelling coming out of Africa. Afro beats has quickly become one of my favorite genres, and I know that traditionally hails from West Africa, so Wambui will have to connect so I can get some insights on the Kenyan music scene. My question is for Kingsley. You talked about the short-sighted mentality, and I'm sure there's a lot of history behind why that is, but how do you approach changing cultural norms as someone that may be seen as an outsider?
As an outsider, I am in many ways considered an outsider. Like people know that I'm full Ghanaian. I have a Ghanaian citizenship. I think in general, like selling the dream, and I think that's been like when I tell people that we're not just making a pineapple farm, we're the best pineapple farm. We want to be the Ghana's favorite pineapple farm. That kind of storytelling hypes people up and gets people excited to think longer term. And I think why that is, I've explored. I think it comes from a mentality of let's just focus on surviving today. You know, even though that boogeyman isn't there exactly, it just perpetuates build your life and so on. So I think it's a good question, but I think I kind of just force it that we need to think of the long-term play here, and for the most part, it's been most successful. I've mandated it, so they have no choice anyways. But I think they're seeing they're seeing the how it's going. So we actually created a road. It's basically we had this road to our farm. It was 3 kilometers long. It was like a dirt road, and basically during the raining season, it gets all messed up because the rain, if you know roads and so on. And basically, the community members they have their own little gardens, not gardens, but fruits that they would use themselves. And basically, we fixed the road. We spent 10,000 USD fixing this damn road that we did not account for. And basically, this is unplanned in our budget. And basically, we could have done it a different way, but we told everyone, hey, we're committed to this for the long run. And by us investing in this, we're serious. So we want you guys to treat us like this is a long-term play. So I think not just talking, like we're walking the walk as well. So I think in our community in particular, they take us seriously. They do what it takes to make our life easier. We're actually getting the road, there's like a road naming ceremony happening next year over it. It's gonna be like a ribbon and all this. So I think just selling them on the long-term plan and getting people excited, I think helps people break the idea of like, that it's just not talk. Because I think in general, there's lots of talk. Oh, we'll do this, do that, and they'll follow through. But I think if you show follow through initially, you get buy-in longer.
Thank you. Let's see if I can get this work. Thank you for being here. This has been fantastic. I want to know what your connection to Africa, however you're feeling it now, however you felt it over the course of your life, how has it given you something that you can use everywhere? What have you gotten from your connection?
Wow. Wow. Okay. So that's really deep and existential. And yeah, so I would say it's home. So there's a little like grounding. So I feel like I'm going to be a poet. It kind of gives me like, I feel like my community is behind me. I have people at home rooting for me. So they end up being the wind underneath my wings. At the same time, I'm told you can always come back home. So it's the wind under my wings, but at the same time, it's the anchor that keeps me where I'm supposed to be. So no matter where I go, like the two things are happening. There is like the wind, I picture it moving in me like this and letting me up. But underneath is also, you're gonna be fine and we're with you and you can come home. So that kind of way really influences how I face the world. So I'm generally a very unafraid person, so which is very worrying. But I do walk in the world like this is going to be fine and I'm going to be great, and it's because of those two things.
I think in general, again, like people there are so hardworking in so many ways, in ways that like are unimaginable. Like because I use WhatsApp, I can see when they're online. And I can see they're online at like 4 a.m., like they're already working. They sleep like 4 hours and like get to work. And that has like motivated me to like work as hard as them as well. And I think it gives you like a humbleness seeing people who like you would think relatively have nothing but are still working twice as hard as you. So I think it reminds me like to not stop and just to like respect the fact that people are putting so much effort that it makes you want to put in effort as well. So it's a humbling experience and also a motivating experience.
Yeah, I was gonna say like hard work as well, but I would also say my passport is Nigerian, and if you have an American passport, it's not something you think about, but that is an extreme privilege. You are allowed in so many places in the world that I am questioned and sometimes just like flat out not accepted. I have been turned back at borders. I have like just getting anywhere that is not Nigeria or like the 5 countries I can go to without paperwork is not fun. Even coming here, like getting a visa was the most stressful part of my MBA application. It took so long and it's a really degrading process. So I think having a Nigerian passport has honestly given me a lot of empathy for people from around the world who are like also don't have like strong passports, but also refugees. I remember I was in Hungary at the time of like when Syria was like really, hot, and there was a lot of refugees and they were being turned back in Europe. And not to compare my situation at all, but I was traveling in Europe and was trying to go to Bosnia and I got stopped. I forget what border it was, some country's border, but they stopped me and like it was a group of us from school and all the Americans went and I had to go back by myself back to Budapest because they wouldn't let me. And it was like a really humiliating and sad experience. And I remember like reflecting on it and just being like, damn, there's people now who don't have a home, like I can just go back to Budapest or go back to Nigeria or whatever, but there's people who are being turned back at every border and they have nowhere to go. So I felt like a connection to those people that I had never like felt up until that moment. And again, like nothing compared to what they were definitely going through. But I think there's a lot of empathy that people from developing countries like have for each other, for people who are suffering, because we kind of like know what it feels like, at least in a small way. Yeah.
And on the passport thing, just generally, I think it's something we should always carry, because I also had the same problem with UCLA when we were going for our business residency. I went to China and it was problematic. So it was just as you walk and as you plan things in your organizations, and especially international things, it's when you have a diverse workforce, those are some of the considerations that you really must not play around with. Don't just say we're going to, I don't know, London on Monday. Like there's a lot of things that people around who do need some leeway to get those kind of things. Good point.
All right. So I think we will leave it on that note. Thank you for the really insightful question. And thank you to our panelists. I think I can speak for everybody here when I say that this was truly an enlightening discussion, and each of you are such inspiring individuals.
Thank you.
All right. So yeah, I think that's it. Thank you guys for coming.
And thank you for moderating. Thank you for being a great moderator and putting this together.